Ever wonder how Elvis became the king?
Yeah, it's a question a lot of people have.
We're diving deep today into a book that reveals the often unsung black musicians who shaped his sound and style.
Awesome.
What do you think about this topic?
Well, I think it's a really important one.
Yeah,
Um, Elvis is such an iconic figure,
right.
and his music is so beloved.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes we forget about the people who influenced him,
Yeah.
the people who helped to create the sound that we all know and love.
Okay, so what book are we looking at today?
The book we're diving into is called Before Elvis, The African Americans Who Made the King
Okay.
by Preston Lauterbach.
Cool. And when was this book published?
It was published on Elvis's 90th birthday.
Wow, that's really fitting.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a really fascinating look at
Okay.
the black musicians who shaped Elvis's music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a list of names. Lauterbach really gets into these artists' lives.
Right.
Showing how their music intertwined with Elvis's and what became of them after Elvis.
So it's not just about Elvis.
No, not at all.
It's about these other artists
Yeah.
who maybe didn't get the recognition they deserved.
Exactly.
I'm really excited to learn more about this.
Me too.
So you might be surprised at how much of Elvis's success
Oh, definitely.
was built on their talent.
Absolutely.
All right. Are you ready to have your mind blown?
Let's do it.
One of the things that struck me
Okay.
was how Elvis arrived in Memphis in 1948
Mm-hmm.
at this incredible moment for music.
Yeah, what a time to be there.
Right. Like it's such a turning point.
Exactly. Black radio was exploding.
Uh-huh.
You had stations like WDIA with all-black programming.
I see.
And WLAC broadcasting blues music far and wide.
Interesting. So that's really how Elvis got his start in music.
Yeah, he was really immersed in this vibrant black music scene.
Okay.
And then independent labels were popping up too,
Oh, wow.
eager to capture these new sounds.
That makes sense. So it was kind of like a perfect storm.
Yeah, you to say
Where
that.
all these factors are coming together, and then Elvis steps right into the middle of it.
Right into this melting pot of creativity.
Exactly. And that's where these key figures
Oh, yeah.
start to come in.
Mhm.
Guys like Arthur Big Boy Crudup.
Oh, for sure.
Who was he?
Crudup was the original artist behind Elvis's very first hit. That's all right.
So Elvis's very first hit was actually a cover.
Yeah, it was.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that his family only started receiving significant royalties,
Okay.
millions of dollars,
Wow.
after he passed away.
That's a kind of a tragic story.
Yeah, it is.
It makes you wonder about the system back then.
It really does.
How could an artist whose song became so popular
Hmm.
not get paid for it until after he was gone?
It speaks to this larger issue of copyright and royalties,
Right.
which often left black artists at a disadvantage.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't always have control over their publishing rights.
So they weren't really getting paid for their own music.
Exactly.
Wow, that's just wrong.
Yeah, it was a very unfair system.
Mm-hmm.
And this theme comes up again and again in Lauterbach's book.
I can imagine.
It's one of the really important things he explores.
And I think a really well-known example of this
Oh,
is
yeah.
the whole hound dog situation with Willie Mae, Big Mama Thornton.
Oh, definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, Thornton had a hit with Hound Dog in 1953.
Oh, wow. So before Elvis.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Elvis covered it in 56,
Right.
turning it into this massive chart-topping sensation.
It's crazy how much more popular his version became.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, Big Mama Thornton had a hit with it,
Right.
but Elvis just took it to a whole other level.
Totally. And Thornton famously claimed she only made $500 from her version.
$500?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what she said.
For a song that became a global phenomenon.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, this whole hound dog situation
Yeah.
seems really complex.
It is.
Like, how can that even happen?
Well, it all comes down to publishing rights.
I see. So can you walk us through how that worked?
Sure. The songwriters,
Okay.
Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller,
Mm-hmm.
sold the publishing rights to Don Roby,
Okay.
who owned Duke Records,
Right.
which was Thornton's label.
Got it.
So basically any earnings from Elvis's version
Okay.
would have gone to Roby, not Thornton.
So she didn't have any control over the publishing?
No, not for that song.
Even though it was her original recording?
Yeah, and sadly,
It's just not, right?
I know.
So that means she probably got some upfront payment.
Yeah, probably in advance,
Okay.
but then didn't get any of the ongoing royalties
Right.
from all those record sales.
That's just wild.
It is.
It really is.
And sadly, this wasn't unusual
Oh, no.
for black artists at the time.
It makes you wonder about all these other artists.
Yeah,
What happened to them?
right. Like after Elvis took off.
Yeah, did they all just fade away?
Well, Lauterbach actually dedicates a big part of the book to
First.
exploring that question.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he talks about Thornton and Crudup, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
and how they both experienced this kind of revival
Okay.
during the blues resurgence of the late 1960s.
Interesting. So they didn't just disappear,
No, they didn't.
but their experiences were different.
Yeah.
How so?
Thornton struggled financially for years
Oh, wow.
before finding success on the blues circuit.
So she was able to make a comeback.
Yeah.
That's good.
But Crudup, on the other hand,
Yeah.
had basically retired from music by the time Elvis hit the scene.
Oh, wow. So he missed out on that whole revival.
Yeah, he did.
That's just crazy to think about.
I know, right?
Imagine being the original artist
Yeah.
behind one of the most iconic songs of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and then just being out there driving a truck.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
It really highlights the complexity of these stories.
It does.
And how Elvis's success kind of had this ripple effect.
That on all
These other artists.
Yeah,
It's fascinating stuff.
it is.
And we've only just scratched the surface here.
We really have.
Like, Lauterbach digs into a whole world of influences.
He does.
Beyond just these few examples.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm really curious to hear more about them.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest influences on Elvis
Okay.
was gospel music.
Gospel music. Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, the Preesleys attended a church
Uh-huh.
that was close to East Trigg Missionary Baptist Church.
The one led by Reverend W. Herbert Brewster?
That's him.
Okay.
He was a real pioneer in gospel songwriting.
I see.
And he even had this radio show
Oh, wow.
where he spoke out against segregation.
Really?
Yeah, and in 1953, he invited white people
Wow.
to attend East Trigg.
And Elvis showed up?
He did.
That's amazing.
I know it was a time of immense racial tension.
Yeah.
But Elvis was really drawn to
Okay.
the power of black gospel music.
He actually called it his first love.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I can just imagine young Elvis
Yeah.
sitting in that church, just soaking it all in.
Totally. And he was learning from the best, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Reverend Brewster and the other gospel singers at East Trigg
Mm-hmm.
were masters at connecting with an audience.
Okay, so this is where he learned to work the house.
Exactly.
Building excitement and
Right.
using the whole stage.
Yeah, they knew how to get the audience engaged,
I see.
creating this shared experience
Right.
through music and emotion.
And you can definitely see that in Elvis's performances.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He wasn't just singing, he was
Mhm.
moving, feeling the music connection with the audience on a whole other level.
Totally.
So that gospel influence
Yeah,
really shaped his whole approach to performance.
it really did.
That's fascinating.
It is.
And that brings us to the next chapter of this deep dive.
Oh, cool.
Elvis's electrifying stage presence.
I love this part.
The energy,
Yeah.
the movement,
Yeah.
the way he commanded the audience.
It was unlike anything anyone had seen before.
Exactly. And it was controversial, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
People aren't used to seeing a white performer
Right.
move like that.
Especially in the 1950s,
Yeah, exactly.
which is where Calvin Newborn comes in.
Calvin Newborn.
Yeah.
Okay, who was he?
Ah, yes, this phenomenal guitarist from Memphis.
Okay.
His family band was incredibly popular,
Oh, wow.
playing for both black and white audiences.
I see.
They even backed B.B. King.
What?
Yeah.
No kidding.
And toured with Jackie Brenston,
okay.
whose song Rocket 88
Mm-hmm.
is considered by many
Yeah.
to be one of the first rock and roll records.
Oh, wow. So they were connected to some really major names in music.
Absolutely. So
Elvis was a fan of theirs.
he was a big fan.
I see.
And he used to go see them
Oh, yeah.
at the Flamingo Club.
Where's that?
It was on Beale Street,
Okay.
and it integrated in 1954.
So black and white patrons could mingle freely?
Exactly.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a big deal at the time.
And you know who the house band was at the Flamingo?
The Newborn Family Band.
No way.
Yes.
So Elvis would have seen Calvin perform.
Oh, yeah.
Up close and personal.
Night after night.
That's incredible.
And there are even accounts of them jamming together.
No kidding.
Yeah, musicians who saw Elvis at the Flamingo,
Yeah.
like Honeymoon Gardner,
Okay.
recalled him playing songs like Good Rockin' Tonight with the Newborns,
Wow.
months before he recorded his own version.
So he was trying out these songs
Yeah, you could say that.
with this black band
Uh-huh.
before he ever recorded them himself.
That's right.
That's really interesting.
It is, isn't it?
Wait, are we saying
Yeah.
that Elvis's iconic moves
Uh-huh.
might have come from watching Calvin?
It's certainly a possibility.
Wow.
Lauterbach highlights how Elvis might have adopted some of his signature moves,
Mm-hmm.
including the famous leg shaking from watching Calvin perform.
I can just imagine Elvis in that club soaking it all in.
Right.
It's like a whole other side
Yeah.
of Elvis that we don't always hear about.
Exactly.
It really puts him in a whole new light.
It does.
It seems like his success was just so intertwined
Oh, yeah.
with this vibrant black music scene in Memphis.
That's precisely what Lauterbach is getting at.
But these influences aren't always acknowledged
No, they're not.
when we talk about Elvis's legacy.
And that's why this deep dive is so crucial.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand the full picture, to
Absolutely.
give credit where credit is due,
Exactly.
and to recognize all the people
hmm
who helped to shape this music that we all love.
It's about understanding the whole story,
Yes.
not just the simplified version.
And I think that's something that's really important to remember
And agree.
in all aspects of history,
Absolutely.
not just music,
Yeah, there are always these hidden connections and influences.
that we need to be aware of.
And I think that's one of the things that makes history so fascinating.
It really is.
It's like this ongoing detective story
Mm-hmm.
where we're constantly uncovering new pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so exciting.
Me too.
It's like we're on this journey of discovery
Yeah,
and we don't know where it's going to take us.
that's the best part.
I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into this topic
Me too.
and learning more about these incredible artists.
It's going to be fascinating.
I think our listeners are in for a real treat.
I think so too.
So we stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
And speaking of these incredible artists, we've talked a lot about Arthur Crudup,
Mm-hmm.
Big Mama Thornton,
Right.
but Lauterbach also highlights some lesser-known figures
He does.
who influenced Elvis.
Oh yeah, there's so many.
So, who are we talking about here?
Well, remember how we discussed the impact of gospel music on Elvis?
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating.
Lauterbach dives deeper into that connection by exploring the influence of Reverend W. Herbert Brewster.
Okay, remind me, who was Reverend Brewster again?
He was the pastor at East Trigg Missionary Baptist Church in Memphis,
Okay.
and the Presley family's church was just a few blocks away.
Wow, so Elvis had a first-hand connection
Yeah, he did.
to this church and its music.
Exactly, and Reverend Brewster wasn't just any pastor.
Okay,
He was a real pioneer in gospel songwriting,
I see.
and he even used his platform,
Mm-hmm.
including a popular show on WDIA radio,
Oh, wow.
to speak out against segregation.
That's amazing.
And he even openly invited white visitors to East Trigg in 1953.
Wow.
And guess who became a regular attendee?
Elvis, I'm assuming.
You got it.
That's incredible.
It's pretty remarkable considering the racial tensions of the time.
Yeah, it really shows how drawn Elvis was to the power and emotion of Black gospel music.
It does, and he even called it his first love in music.
Oh, wow. That's really saying something.
It is, isn't it?
I can just picture young Elvis sitting in that church,
Yeah.
just soaking it all in.
And learning so much.
Yeah, and not just about the music itself.
Right. Elvis learned a lot about stage presence and connecting with an audience by watching these gospel performers work the house.
Oh, yeah, they were masters at that.
They really were.
Building excitement,
Right.
creating this shared emotional experience with the audience.
And you can definitely make that influence in Elvis's performances.
Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't just singing.
No, he was feeling the music.
Right.
In a way that was totally new at the time.
Yeah, it was electrifying.
And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of
Yeah.
Elvis's story,
Which is,
his incredible stage presence.
I love talking about this.
Me too. It's so captivating.
Like that energy.
Right.
The movement.
Yeah.
The way he commanded the audience's attention.
It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before.
And often very controversial.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
people just weren't used to seeing that kind of uninhibited movement.
Right. Especially from a white performer.
Right, in the 1950s.
Exactly. And that's where the story of Calvin Newborn comes in.
Ah, yes, Calvin
The
Newborn.
guitarist we talked about earlier.
That's right, the one with the amazing family band.
Lauterbach suggests that Elvis might have picked up some of his signature moves
It does.
from watching Calvin perform.
It's pretty fascinating, isn't it?
Hold on. Are we saying that Elvis's legendary stage presence
Yeah.
might have been inspired by a Black musician?
That's what Lauterbach is suggesting.
That's huge.
It really is, if you think about it.
It makes you wonder how much of Elvis's success can be attributed
Right.
to the influence of Black artists.
It's a really important question.
Yeah, and it's something that we need to acknowledge and celebrate.
Absolutely.
So tell me more about Calvin Newborn.
Well, remember, Elvis was a regular
Yeah.
at the Flamingo Club on Beale Street,
Mm-hmm.
where the Newborns were the house band.
Right?
So he would have seen Calvin up close,
Yeah.
night after night.
And we even mentioned earlier
Right.
that there are accounts of Elvis actually jamming with the band.
Exactly. Musicians like Honeymoon Garner,
Oh,
who
yeah.
witnessed these jam sessions,
Yeah.
recalled Elvis playing songs like Good Rockin' Tonight with the Newboards months before he recorded his own version.
So he was like workshopping his future hits
Yeah, kind of.
right there in the club?
It's an incredible thought.
It really is.
Absorbing the style and energy of these incredible black musicians.
And it wasn't just imitation either. Elvis was obviously inspired
Yes,
by what he saw and heard,
of course.
but he also brought his own unique personality
Absolutely.
and charisma to the
It was
mix.
this fusion of influences,
Yeah,
a blend of black and white musical traditions that created something entirely new.
exactly. And that's what makes this story so fascinating.
I agree.
It challenges that simplistic narrative
Mm-hmm.
of Elvis as this lone innovator.
Right.
Instead, we see him as part of this larger cultural
A
exchange
product of his time and place,
and a time and place that was just bursting with musical creativity.
especially within the black community.
Lauterbach's book really drives that point home.
It does.
He meticulously traces the connections
Yeah.
between Elvis and these black musicians.
And shows how their work really helped to shape the sound
Right.
that would make him the king.
But as we've been discussing,
Yeah.
those influences are often overlooked or downplayed
Totally they are.
in the traditional Elvis narrative.
And that's why this deep dive is so important.
I totally agree.
It's about giving credit where credit is due,
Yes.
recognizing the often unsung heroes
Right.
who helped to shape American music.
It's about understanding the full picture,
Absolutely.
the complex web of influences.
That created the soundtrack of a generation.
And it's also about acknowledging those systemic inequalities
Yes, very important.
that often prevented black artists from receiving the recognition and compensation they deserved.
It's a complicated legacy,
It is.
but it's one that we need to grapple with, honestly and openly.
Absolutely.
It's kind of sad to think about all those untold stories out there.
I know. It really makes you wonder how much music history we might be missing out on because those stories haven't been told.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes Lauterbach's book so important. It's about shining a light on those hidden figures and giving them the recognition they deserve.
Absolutely. It's like he's saying, hey, if you love Elvis,
Yes.
you should know about these incredible artists
Right.
who helped to shape his sound.
Exactly. And it goes even beyond just Elvis.
Right.
It's about recognizing the contributions of black musicians to American music as a whole.
It's like that saying, if you want to understand the fruit,
Yeah,
you have to look at the roots.
love that.
And the roots of Elvis's music
Mhm.
run deep into the fertile soil
Yeah.
of black musical traditions.
That's a great analogy.
It's about understanding the context,
Right.
the
From a
influences,
perspective.
the conversations that were happening in music at that time.
Yeah, and recognizing that those influences are often overlooked,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we talk about rock and roll history.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think it's about opening our ears and our minds
Okay.
to the full spectrum of musical influences.
To the full
Yeah,
spectrum.
like to challenge the narratives we've been told
Right.
and to really dig deeper
Yeah.
into the stories behind the music we love.
To appreciate the richness and complexity of music history.
Absolutely.
And to recognize the contributions
Yeah.
of all the artists,
Yeah.
both famous and forgotten,
Yeah.
who shaped the sounds that we hear today.
I think that's beautifully said.
And to think critically about these issues of race and appropriation
Right.
and who gets the credit.
These are really important conversations to be having.
Absolutely, both in the past and in the present.
Yeah, because music is this powerful force.
It really is.
And understanding its history can help us to build a more equitable and inclusive future.
Yes, for all artists.
So the next time you hear an Elvis song,
Okay.
remember the incredible black musicians who helped to make him the king.
Think about Arthur Big Boy Crudup,
Yeah.
Herman Jr. Parker,
Curly May, Big Mama,
Reverend W. Herbert Brewster,
Calvin Newborn.
and countless others.
Their stories are woven into the fabric of American music.
And if you're interested in learning more about this,
Yeah.
we highly recommend checking out
Definitely.
Preston Lauterbach's book,
hmm
Before Elvis, The African Americans Who Made the King.
It's a fascinating and eye-opening read.
It really is. It's a reminder that there's always more to discover.
Always.
Always more to learn.
And music is a journey, not a destination.
So keep exploring,
Keep listening.
keep asking questions.
That's what makes it so rewarding.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay, hit us with it.
If Elvis was a product of his time and place,
Yeah.
deeply influenced by the black music scene of Memphis,
Hmm.
how might music history have unfolded differently if those artists had received the same opportunities and recognition?
That's a really powerful question.
It really is. It challenges us to imagine a world where talent and creativity are celebrated,
Yes.
regardless of race or background.
What a beautiful thought to leave our listeners with.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another exploration
See you then.
into the fascinating world of knowledge and ideas.